In the summer of 1983, 7 children vanished without a trace from Camp Whispering Pines in Washington state. For 41 years, their disappearance remained one of the Pacific Northwest's most haunting, unsolved mysteries. Then, in August 2024, a wildfire tearing through the Cascade foothills exposed something that had been hidden beneath the forest floor for 4 decades. A network of concrete bunkers filled with the remnants of young lives that never made it home. What investigators found inside those underground chambers would reveal a truth far more disturbing than abduction or murder, a meticulously constructed false reality designed to convince children that the world above had ended in nuclear fire. While their families searched desperately, these 7 children lived and died, believing they were the last survivors of humanity, trapped in a nightmare orchestrated by the one person they trusted to keep them safe. This is the story of what happened beneath Camp Whispering Pines, and the sister who never stopped searching. Subscribe and follow for more deep-dive true crime investigations into cases that change families forever. July 1983. Vanessa Kellerman was 12 years old the morning her brother disappeared. She remembered the smell of the morning, damp pine needles, and the lingering smoke from the previous night's campfire. The air in the Cascade Mountains held a particular coolness even in summer, the kind that made you grateful for a sweatshirt until the sun climbed higher and burned it away. Vanessa sat outside her cabin, Cabin 7, braiding friendship bracelets with 2 other girls from her group. Across the central clearing of Camp Whispering Pines, she could see Cabin 3, where her 9-year-old brother Owen had been assigned. The junior campers were supposed to go on a nature hike that morning. She had watched them assemble after breakfast. 7 children ranging from 8 to 10 years old, their backpacks loaded with water bottles and trail mix. Mr. Fairmont, the assistant camp director, had led them toward the Eastern Trail. Douglas Fairmont was popular with the younger kids. He told stories, knew the names of every bird and plant, and never got impatient when children asked endless questions that Vanessa's mother had been relieved that Owen would have such an attentive counselor. "Your brother's so lucky," her cabin mate Jessica had said that morning. Mr. the Fairmont's group always gets to do the cool stuff. Vanessa had nodded, watching Owen's small figure disappear into the tree, and he had turned back once, waving enthusiastically. She had waved back. That was the last time she saw him. By dinner time, the junior group hadn't returned. The camp director, a nervous woman named Patricia Vowell, initially explained that the hike must have run long, that Mr. Fairmont was probably letting the children explore. But as darkness fell and the temperature dropped, panic set in. Vanessa remembered sitting in the dining hall with the other campers, for Bedento leave while counselors and staff fanned out into the forest with flashlights. She remembered the beam of light cutting through the windows, the sound of voices calling names into the vast darkness. Owen, Amy, Jacob, Lily, Marcus, Hannah, Sophie. 7 names, 7 children gone. Search and rescue teams arrived the next morning. Vanessa and the other campers were sent home to their families, but Vanessa's parents had stayed, refusing to leave the mountain without Owen. She stayed with her grandmother for 3 weeks, while helicopters circled overhead and search dogs followed trails that led nowhere. Douglas Fairmont's body was found on the 4th day of searching at the bottom of a ravine 2 miles from camp. The fall had broken his neck. His backpack was still on his shoulders, his hiking boots unlaced. The official theory suggested had fallen while trying to get help after the children became lost, though no one could explain why 7 children would have simply vanished while their counselor went for help. No other bodies were found. No clothing, no backpacks, no trace. The camp closed permanently that autumn. The investigation eventually went cold, and Vanessa Kellerman, who had waved goodbye to her brother on a sunny July morning, carried the weight of that moment for the next 41 years. She never stopped looking for answers. August 2024, the fire started on a Tuesday. Vanessa was in her home office in Seattle when her phone alert chimed with the news. A wildfire in the Cascade foothills spreading rapidly through dried timber near the old Camp Whispering Pines property. She stared at the notification for a long moment, her chest tightening with something that felt like both dread and dark anticipation. For 4 decades, that forest had kept its secrets. Now it was burning. She called her husband at work. I need to go up there. Marcus didn't argue. He had lived with Vanessa's obsession for their entire 20-year marriage, understanding that the missing piece of her childhood would always pull her back. How long? I don't know. A few days, maybe. By Wednesday afternoon, she was driving north on Interstate 5. Her car packed with file boxes she had kept since 1983, newspaper clippings, police reports obtained through public records requests, maps she had marked and remarked over the years. The fire was 50% contained now, according to the radio. Evacuations had been lifted in some areas. She reached the small town off Millage by early evening. The air tasted like smoke, and a haze hung over mountains. Vanessa checked into the same motel she always stayed at when she made these pilgrimages, a roadside place called the Timberline Inn. The owner, an elderly woman named Ruth, recognized her immediately. "Vanessa, I saw the news about the fire." Ruth's expression was sympathetic. "Terrible thing." "Yes." Vanessa signed the register with hands that had started to shake somewhere around mile marker 142. "Has anyone been up to the old camp property since the fire?" Ruth shook her head. "Roads are still closed. Forest Service won't let anyone through until they're sure it's safe." Vanessa took her room key and carried her overnight bag up the exterior stairs to room 214, the same room she always requested. Through the window, she could see the mountain ridge where Camp Whispering Pines had once stood. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at the small desk reviewing files she had memorized years ago, studying photographs of 7 smiling children who had never come home. Owen Kellerman, 9 years old. Her brother, Amy Winters, 8 blonde pigtails, gap-toed smile, Jacob Morse, 10. Freckles across his nose, baseball cap worn backward. Lily Torres, 9, dark eyes, serious expression even in the camp photo. Marcus Webb, 8, the smallest of the group, shy. Hannah Driscoll, 10, confident, athletic, the kind of girl who climbed trees. Sophie Blake, 9, red hair. Glasses, a book always in her hands. 7 children, 41 years. Her phone rang at 6 o'clock in the morning. Unknown number. Ms. Kellerman, a woman's voice professional. "This is Detective Rita Holbrook with the Washington State Police. I understand you've been researching the 1983 Camp Whispering Pines' disappearances. Vanessa's pulse quickened. "Yes, for 41 years. The forest fire exposed some structures on the old camp property. I think you should come up here." "What kind of structures?" There was a pause. "Ma'am, I'd prefer to show you in person. How soon can you get to the access road checkpoint?" 20 minutes later, Vanessa was following a police cruiser up a fire-damaged logging road. The forest was a graveyard of blackened trunks and ash-covered ground. Where thick undergrowth had once concealed the landscape, the fire had stripped everything bare. Detective Holbrook was a tall woman in her 40s with gray straw hair pulled into a practical ponytail. She met Vanessa at a newly established perimeter, yellow tape strung between scorched trees. "Before we go further," the detective said, "I need to prepare you. What we found is disturbing." Vanessa's throat was dry. "I've been preparing for 41 years. They walked through the burn zone for nearly 15 minutes. The old camp buildings were long gone, demolished decades ago, but Vanessa recognized the topography, the slope of the land, the position of certain boulders. They were on the eastern edge of the property, near where the junior hiking group had entered the forest that July morning. Detective Holbrook stopped near a collapsed section of ground. The fire burned hot enough to compromise some underground structures. The ground gave way 2 days ago. Vanessa approached the edge and looked down. Concrete stairs descended into darkness. The entrance had been concealed beneath years of soil and vegetation, invisible until the fire had consumed everything above it. Even now, she could see where someone had carefully camouflaged the structure. The concrete had been textured to look like natural rock, painted in earth tones that would blend with the forest floor. "There are 3 separate bunker systems," Detective Holbrook said quietly, "connected by tunnels. We've only done a preliminary survey, but we've found remains, Miss Kellerman. Children's remains and evidence of long-term habitation." Vanessa's legs felt unsteady. "How long?" "We won't know for certain until forensics completes their analysis, But based on what we've seen, years. Someone kept children alive down there for years. The detective gestured toward a staging area where other investigators were suiting up in protective gear. We're bringing in a full forensic team, anthropologists, archaeologists, cadaver dogs. This is now a crime scene recovery operation. I want to go down there. Detective Holbrook studied her face. Miss Kellerman, I can't allow my brothers down there. Vanessa's voice was steady despite the tremor in her hands. I've spent 4 decades wondering what happened to him. I need to see. The detective was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded toward the staging area. Suit up. Stay close to me. Touch nothing. 10 minutes later, Vanessa descended into the earth. The stairs were steep carved concrete that led down at least 20 feet. Battery-powered work lights had been strung along the walls, casting harsh shadows. The air grew cooler as they descended, carrying a smell that Vanessa could immediately identify. Something stale and old, like opening a sealed room that hadn't seen daylight in decades. The stairs opened into a corridor. Concrete walls approximately 7 feet high and 4 feet wide. Metal doors lined both sides, each with a small viewing slot and heavy deadbolt locks. We've identified 3 main chambers so far, Detective Holbrook said, her voice echoing slightly. This appears to be the primary bunker. The others are smaller, possibly storage or secondary living areas. She led Vanessa to the first open door. The room beyond was approximately 12 by 15 feet. Bunk beds lined the walls, simple metal frames with thin mattresses that had decomposed into moldy fragments. A folding table stood in the center with small wooden chairs around it, child-sized, dot on the walls. Someone had hung educational posters, world maps, multiplication tables, the periodic table of elements. But what froze Vanessa's breath were the children's drawings taped to every available surface. Crude crayon sketches, off-mushroom clouds, nuclear explosions, skeletal figures burning cities, and above one of the bunks drawn in careful child's handwriting. Day 847, got still no signal from the surface. God save us. We think this was a dormitory, Detective Holbrook said, quietly. The bunker system includes what looks like a classroom, a supply room, a rudimentary medical area, and primitive bathroom facilities. Everything someone would need to keep children alive underground for an extended period. Vanessa moved to the bunk with a written message. Beneath it, she found something that made her heart stop. A small carved wooden horse, no bigger than her palm. Owen had carried one, just like it, a gift from their grandfather. We're documenting everything before we move any items, the detective said. But it wanted you to see the scope of what we're dealing with. Miss Kellerman, someone constructed an elaborate survival shelter and kept those children down here, possibly for years. The drawings, the messages on the walls, they believed the world above had been destroyed. Vanessa touched the wall where a child had written. Is anyone alive up there? They thought it was real, she whispered. They thought nuclear war had actually happened, but that's our current theory. We found what appears to be a makeshift radio in one of the other chambers, completel and functional, but rigged to produce static and occasional emergency broadcasts that reinforce the narrative. Detective Holbrook led her deeper into the bunker complex. They passed through the tunnel connecting Toth's second structure, their footsteps echoing on concrete. More rooms, more evidence of children's lives lived in darkness, school lessons written on chalkboards, a calendar on one wall marked off day by day, the count reaching into the thousands before stopping abruptly. In what appeared Tobe, the medical area, they found the first remains. A small skeleton lay on a cot covered with a decomposed blanket. The bones were arranged carefully, hands folded across the chest. A plastic hospital bracelet still circled one wrist, the writing too faded to read. That we've found 4 sets of remains so far, the detective said softly. All children based on bone structure. Cause of death, unknown until the medical examiner completes the analysis, but there's no obvious trauma. Illness, Vanessa said, hollowly. You said some died from illness. That's speculation at this point, but yes, in a confined underground environment with limited medical resources, illness would be a significant threat. They moved through the complex for another hour. Each room revealed new horrors. A punishment cell barely large enough to stand in, scratch marks on the concrete walls. A supply room with rusted cans of food and gallon jugs of water. A workshop with tools and what appeared to be ventilation equipment. And everywhere the children's presence, handprints on walls, names carved into wooden surfaces, drawings and writings that documented a childhood lived in perpetual fear and darkness. When they finally emerged back into daylight, Vanessa's eyes burned for more than just the bright sun. Detective Holbrook removed her protective gear and studied Vanessa's face. I know this is overwhelming, but I need to ask, does anything you saw down there help identify which children were kept here? Vanessa thought about the wooden horse, about the handwriting on the walls, about 41 years of waiting for answers. I need to see everything, she said. Every item, every piece of evidence. I've memorized details about those children that might seem insignificant to your team, but could be crucial for identification. The detective nodded. We'll arrange it. Miss Kellerman, there's one more thing you should know. We found evidence that suggests not all 7 children died in the bunkers. Vanessa stared at her. What? The calendar I showed you, it was maintained for over 8 years, but we've only recovered 4 sets of remains so far. We're still searching, but there's a possibility that some children survived longer than others, possibly long enough to escape. Vanessa's voice was barely audible or to be released. We found journals written by an adult documenting what he called the program. Ms. Kellerman Douglas Fairmont didn't die in that ravine by accident, and I don't think he was working alone. The forensic team arrived in force by Thursday morning. Vanessa watched from the perimeter as white-suited technicians descended into the bunkers like spelunkers entering a tomb. She had spent the night in her motel room, unable to close her eyes without seeing those children's drawings, those desperate messages written on concrete walls. Day 847. Still no signal. Detective Holbrook had set up a command center in a temporary trailer at the access road checkpoint. When Vanessa arrived at 7 in the morning, the detective was already reviewing preliminary reports with her team. Miss Kellerman, Holbrook looked up from her laptop. I was about to call you. We've made significant progress overnight. She gestured for Vanessa to join her at a folding table covered with photographs and documents. We've now identified the remains of 6 children. The 7th is still unaccounted for. Vanessa's pulse quickened. 6. 2 more were found in the 3rd bunker structure, which we fully excavated last night. All 6 show signs of death occurring over a span of several years. Different stages of decomposition, different burial methods. The earliest death appears to have occurred approximately 6 to 9 months after the initial abduction. Holbrook spread out a series of photographs. We are working with dental records and DNA when possible, but I wanted to show you some personal items we've recovered. Given your research, you might recognize something that could expedite identification. The photographs showed artifacts carefully cataloged and numbered. A plastic barrette shaped like a butterfly, a digital watch with a cracked face, a pair of wire-rimmed glasses, a baseball card in a protective sleeve, a small purple diary with a broken lock. Vanessa's hand trembled as she pointed to the glasses. Sophie Blake wore glasses like those wire frames slightly bent on the left side. She had sat on them the first day of camp. She moved her finger to the baseball card. Jacob Morse collected baseball cards. He had talked about bringing his favorite ones to show the other kids. One by one, she identified items. The butterfly barrette belonged to Amy Winters. Vanessa remembered because Amy had worn it in the camp photo, proudly showing off the new accessory. The purple diary was Hannah Driscoll's. She had written in it every night before bed, much to her cabin mate's annoyance when they wanted lights out. This is incredibly helpful, Holbrook said, making notes. We'll cross-reference with the DNA analysis, but this gives us a preliminary framework. Vanessa stared at the photographs. 6 children identified. Which one is missing? We won't know for certain until we have confirmed DNA matches. But based on the items you've identified and the remains we've found, we can make educated guesses about who the 6 are. The 7th The one whose remains we haven't found is most likely the one who survived longest. Or escaped. Or escaped. Holbrook agreed quietly. A young officer appeared in the trailer doorway. Detective Dr. Chun is ready to brief you on the journals. They walked to a second trailer that had been converted into a temporary forensics lab. Inside, a woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair was examining a series of water-damaged notebooks through a magnifying lens. She looked up as they entered. Dr. Patricia Chun Holbrook introduced our lead forensic anthropologist. Dr. Chun, this is Vanessa Kellerman, sister of one of the victims. Dr. Chun's expression was sympathetic. Miss Kellerman, I'm very sorry for what your family has endured. She gestured to the notebook spread across her workspace. We found these in a locked metal box in what we believe was Douglas Fairmont's personal quarters, a small room separated from a children's areas. She carefully turned the pages of the first journal. These are handwritten, accounts documenting what Fairmont called project preservation. Based on the entries, he had been planning this for at least 2 years before the abductions occurred. Vanessa leaned closer, reading Thespiteri handwriting. June 15th, 1981. The bunker construction is complete. 3 chambers fully stocked for 5 years minimum. The children will be safe here. When it happens, they'll understand eventually. They'll thank me for saving them. He was delusional. Dr. Chin said, the journals show a progressive descent into paranoia about nuclear war. He genuinely believed he was saving these children from imminent destruction. She turned to another entry, July 2nd, 1983. The children adapted more quickly than expected. The radio broadcasts were convincing. Young Marcus cried for his mother the first week, but Lily helped comfort him. They're forming a family unit. It's beautiful to watch humanity's resilience. Vanessa's stomach churned. He thought he was conducting some kind of experiment. More than that, Holbrook said he believed he was ensuring the survival of humanity. Look at this entry from 6 months in. Dr. Chin turned to a page marked with her evidence tag. January 1984. We lost Amy today. The fever took her despite my best efforts. I held a burial ceremony in Chamber 3. The other children sang hymns. They understand death now in a way surface children never could. They're stronger for it. This is what the new world needs. Children who understand survival, that he documented every death. Dr. Chin said quietly, Amy Winters in January 1984, that Jacob Morse in June 1984. An accident during an escape drill Fairmont had designed. Marcus Webb in September 1985 from what sounds like pneumonia. Hannah Driscoll in March 1986. The entry suggests she tried to escape through the ventilation system and became trapped. Each name was a knife in Vanessa's chest. Children she had known had played with during that brief week at Camp Before the World Shattered. What about the others? She asked. Lily Torres and Sophie Blake. Dr. Chun turned to the final pages of the journal. Sophie died in November 1987. Fairmont's entry suggests she deliberately stopped eating, what we would recognize now as a psychological breakdown. She was 18 by then, had spent her entire adolescence underground. And Lily, that's where it gets complicated. Dr. Chin exchanged a glance with Detective Holbrook. The journals end in May 1991, 8 years after the abductions. The final entry reads, Lily passed her final test today. She's ready for the surface. Project preservation is complete. 1 child survived to carry forward the knowledge of endurance. She will rebuild. Vanessa stared at the words. He let her go. Or she escaped, Holbrook said. But either way, Miss Kellerman, we believe Lily Torres survived. She would have been 17 years old in 1991, and if she's still alive, she would be 50 today. The implications crashed over Vanessa like a wave. You're telling Mion of those children has been living in the world for the past 33 years? Does she know who she is? That's what we need to determine. Holbrook pulled out a photograph, the original camp photo of Lily Torres, 0.9 years old, dark hair and braids, serious eyes looking directly at the camera. If Fairmont truly believed nuclear war had destroyed civilization, he might have maintained that fiction even when releasing her. She could have integrated into society, believing she was someone else entirely with no knowledge of her real identity or family. Dr. Chen added, the psychological impact of 8 years in an underground bunker, believing the world had ended, would be profound. If she was released or escaped, she might have experienced severe disorientation, memory issues, or psychological trauma that affected her sense of self. Vanessa looked at the photograph of 9-year-old Lily, trying to imagine that child as a 50-year-old woman walking around somewhere, perhaps passing her Auntie Street, neither knowing the connection they shared through that terrible summer. We need to find her, Vanessa said. We're already starting, Holbrook replied. But Miss Kellerman, you need to understand, if Lily Torres is alive and has no memory of her true identity, making contact could be psychologically devastating. We'll need to proceed very carefully. An officer knocked on the trailer door. Detective, we found something else in the third bunker. You should see this. They followed him back through the burned Zanito, the bunker entrance. The work lights had been extended deeper into the tunnel system, illuminating areas that had been darkness for 40 years. In the farthest chamber, a technician pointed to a wall that had been hidden behind a collapsed section of shelving. Someone had carved words into the concrete, each letter painstakingly deep. Lily Torres, 1975 to 1991. I was here. I survived. If anyone finds this, my name is Lily Torres. I existed. Below the words, a handprint pressed into the concrete while it was still wet, preserved for decades. She knew, Vanessa whispered. She knew who she was. Detective Holbrook photographed the carving from multiple angles. This changes things. If she left this message, she was fighting to maintain her identity, which means when she left this bunker, she knew her real name. Then, why didn't she come forward? Vanessa demanded. Why didn't she contact police, tell someone what happened? Fear, trauma, confusion, any number of reasons. Dr. Chen studied the handprint. Or perhaps she did try and wasn't believed. A traumatized 17-year-old girl claiming to be one of the children who disappeared 8 years earlier. Without physical evidence, without being able to totally add authorities back to this location, it would have seemed like delusion. Vanessa touched the wall beside the carving, feeling the rough concrete. We have to find her. She's the only one who can tell us what really happened down here. We will, Holbrook promised. We'll start with missing person reports from 1991. Jane Doe cases, hospital admissions for traumatized young women. That will find her. But as Vanessa stared at those carved words, I existed. She wondered if Lily Torres wanted to be found, or if after 8 years in hell and 33 years of whatever came after, she had built a new life and buried the old ones so deep that excavating it would destroy her all over again. By Friday morning, the bunker excavation had become a full-scale archaeological operation. Vanessa arrived at the site to find the perimeter expanded, additional trailers brought in, and a team of specialists documenting every square inch of the underground complex. She had barely slept again, her mind cycling through the same impossible question. Where was Lily Torres? Detective Holbrook met her at the command trailer with coffee and a grim expression. We ran Lily's information through every database we have access to. Missing persons, unidentified remains, hospital admissions, social security records. Nothing matches. How is that possible? Vanessa wrapped her hands around the coffee cup, seeking warmth. Despite the August heat, she would have needed identification, medical care, some kind of documentation to exist in society, unless she's using a different identity, or someone helped her create one. Holbrook pulled up a digital file on her laptop. We're looking into Douglas Fairmont's background now, specifically anyone he might have been in contact with. If he planned this for years, he might have had accomplices. A new detective entered the trailer. A man in his 30s with sharp features and tired eyes. Detective Chun, Homicide Division, he introduced himself. I've been reviewing Fairmont's death investigation from 1983. Vanessa straightened. You think his death wasn't accidental? I think it wasn't thoroughly investigated at the time because everyone assumed he died trying to get help for lost children. But look at this. He spread out crime scene photos from 1983. Douglas Fairmont's body at the bottom of a ravine, his neck broken. The medical examiner noted defensive wounds on his hands, bruising that suggested he'd been in a physical altercation before the fall. Detective Holbrook leaned forward. "You're saying someone pushed him?" "I'm saying someone fought with him, man. He ended up dead. The question is, who?" Chin pulled out another document. He also pulled his financial records. In the 2 years before the abductions, he made large cash withdrawals. Over $40,000 total. That money went somewhere. The bunkers, Vanessa said, construction, supplies, everything needed to keep children alive underground for years. Exactly. But here's what's interesting. The withdrawals continued after his death. Someone accessed his bank account in September 1983, 2 months after he died, and withdrew another $5,000, but the implication hung in the air. Holbrook voiced it first. He had a partner or multiple partners, Chin agreed. Someone who knew about the bunkers and continued to maintain them after Fairmont's death. Someone who kept those children underground for 8 more years. Vanessa felt cold despite the coffee. "You're telling me this wasn't just one disturbed man's delusion. There were others involved." Before anyone could answer, Dr. Patricia Chun appeared in the doorway, her expression troubled. "We've completed the preliminary analysis off the remains. You need to hear this." They gathered around as the forensic anthropologist pulled up her report on a tablet. "The 6 children we've identified all show evidence of malnutrition and vitamin deficiencies consistent with limited diet and lack of sunlight. But there are other findings that concern me." She swiped to a series of medical images, multiple healed fractures in different stages of healing, bone scarring consistent with repeated trauma, and on 2 of the remains, we found evidence of restraint injuries, damage to wrist and ankle bones, suggesting they were bound for extended periods. "He hurt them," Vanessa said hollowly. "Or they hurt each other." Dr. Chin pulled up another image. "We found what appears to be a makeshift weapon in one of the chambers. A metal pipe with dried blood on it. The DNA is degraded, but we're testing it. Ms. Kellerman, 7 children living in a confined space for years under extreme psychological stress, being told the world above was destroyed. The conditions would have been volatile." Vanessa thought about the drawings she'd seen, the scratched walls in the punishment cell, the calendar marked off day by day by day. "Lord of the Flies," she whispered. "In essence, yes. Fairmont's journals mention implementing a governance structure. He made the older children responsible for the younger ones, created rules and punishments, essentially built a microcosm society. But when he died, that structure would have collapsed." Detective Holbrook was studying the medical images. If Fairmont died in July 1983, and someone else continued supplying the bunkers until at least 1991, who was in charge during those 8 years? The children themselves, Dr. Chin said, quietly. Or rather, whoever became a dominant force among them. The journals suggest Lily Torres was one of the oldest and most intelligent, that if she survived when the others didn't, she might have done so by becoming a survivor at any cost. Vanessa finished. The thought made her sick. A 9-year-old girl transformed over 8 years into whatever she needed to be to stay alive. Detective Chun pulled out his phone, inputting in a request to review all documented cases of feral children, extreme isolation trauma, and cult deprogramming from the early 1990s. If Lily Torres emerged from those bunkers, someone might have encountered her in a professional capacity. An officer knocked on the trailer frame. "Detective Holbrook, we found something in Fairmont's quarters, a hidden compartment behind the wall." They followed him back into the bunkers. Vanessa had been underground 3 times now, but the descent still made her chest tight. The air tasted stale, and chemical from the preservatives the forensic team was using. Work lights cast harsh shadows that made the children's drawing seem to move. In Fairmont's small private room, barely larger than a closet with a narrow cot and small desk, technicians had removed a section of concrete wall to reveal a metal box welded into the structure. The box was open now, its contents spread carefully on a plastic sheet of photographs. Dozens of them, not of the children, but of families. Vanessa recognized Owen's 3rd grade school photo, the one her parents had given to the police. Beside it, photos of their house, their car, their family, at a picnic, surveillance photos. He stalked all of them, Detective Holbrook said, moving along the line of images, every child, every family. This wasn't random selection. He chose them deliberately. Vanessa found the photos of the Torres family. Lily with her parents playing in a backyard. Lily at a birthday party. Lily walking to school. An entire childhood documented by a predator. But there was something else in the box. A stack of letters still in their envelopes addressed to various parents. They had never been mailed. Detective Holbrook carefully opened one addressed to Owen's parents, Vanessa's, mother and father. The handwriting was childish, uneven. Dear Mom and Dad, Mr. Fairmont says we have to stay underground because of the bombs. He says you're gone now, but I don't believe him. When can I come home? Owen. The date at the top read September 1983. He made them write letters, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. He made them write to parents he'd told them were dead. More letters from all the children, some angry, some pleading, some matter-of-fact reports about life underground. All unsent, all preserved in Fairmont's hidden compartment like trophies. The last letter was different, written in more mature handwriting dated April 1991. To whoever finds this, my name is Lily Torres. I was taken from Camp Whispering Pines in July 1983. 6 other children were taken with me. They're all dead now. Mr. Fairmont is dead too. I watched him fall in the forest when he tried to take me up to the surface the first time before we came to the bunkers. He was supposed to take just me on a special nature walk, but the other kids followed, and then everything went wrong. He told us the bombs fell. He made us believe it for so long, but I know the truth now. I found his journals. I found everything. I'm 17 years old. I've been underground for 8 years. I don't know if I can survive up there anymore. I don't know if anyone will believe me. I don't know if my parents are still looking. If you find this and I'm gone, please know I tried. Please know we all tried. Lily Vanessa's hands shook as she read. She knew before. She left. She knew it was all a lie. But she still left this letter here instead of taking it with her. Detective Holbrook observed. Why? Dr. Chun had been examining the letter carefully. Look at the handwriting. It degrades toward the end, becomes more erratic. And this sentence here, I don't know if I can survive up there anymore. This is someone who's been psychologically conditioned to fear the surface world. Even knowing it was a lie, the fear would have been real. So she leaves, knowing the truth. But too traumatized to trust it, Vanessa said, what would that do to a person? Fragment there. Identity, Dr. Chun replied. She might have dissociated, created new personas as a survival mechanism, or she might have simply walked away and tried to forget any of this ever happened, burying Lily Torres so deep she became someone else entirely. Detective Chun was photographing the letters. These give us more to work with. We can cross-reference the handwriting with any documents a Jane Doe from that period might have signed. Hospital intake forms, police reports, social service records. They spent another 2 hours in the bunkers documenting everything. Vanessa found herself drawn to the wall where Lily had carved her name. She stood there, touching the concrete, trying to understand what it took to maintain your identity in a place designed to erase it. When they finally emerged back to the surface, the sun was setting, painting the burned forest in shades of orange and red. Vanessa's phone buzzed with a text from her husband. How are you holding up? She didn't know how to answer. She had spent 41 years wanting answers, and now that she had them, they were so much worse than anything she'd imagined. That night, back in her motel room, Vanessa spread out her research again. But this time, she wasn't looking at the missing children. She was looking for Lily Torres, not the 9-year-old who disappeared, but the 17-year-old who emerged. Where would she go? What would she do? How would she survive in a world she'd been taught to fear? Vanessa pulled up her laptop and began searching. Hospital records, Jane Doe. Cases, missing persons who appeared out of nowhere, women in their 40s and 50s, with gaps in their personal histories. It was looking for a ghost, but Vanessa had been searching for ghosts for 4 decades. She would find Lily Torres. She owed it to Owen, to all the children who never came home. And she owed it to the 17-year-old girl who carved her name in concrete and walked out of that bunker into an uncertain world. Somewhere out there, Lily Torres was living a life, and Vanessa was going to find her. The breakthrough came on Sunday afternoon when Vanessa was least expecting it. She had been at the site since dawn, watching the forensic team continue their meticulous documentation. The excavation had revealed even more disturbing details. A crude library of survival manuals and Cold War propaganda, a makeshift classroom where Fairmont had apparently taught the children about radiation and nuclear winter, and most horrifying, small isolation cell where writing on the walls suggested children had been locked in darkness for days as punishment. Detective Holbrook found Vanessa sitting outside the command trailer, staring at the mountains with red-rimmed eyes. "We got a hit," the detective said without preamble. Hospital records from Sacred Heart Medical Center in Spokane. September 14, 1991, a Jane Doe, approximately 17 years old, brought in by a truck driver who found her walking along Highway 2 near Leavenworth. Vanessa's exhaustion vanished. That's less than 50 miles from here. The intake notes describe her as severely malnourished, suffering from phototophobia, extreme sensitivity to light, and exhibiting signs of severe psychological trauma. She wouldn't speak for the first 3 days. When she finally did, she gave her name as Lily. Just Lily. Just Lily. No last name. She claimed she'd been living in a survivalist compound with her father, who had recently died, and she didn't know how to find her way back. The hospital tried to verify her story, but she became agitated when they pressed for details. Social services was called, but before they could complete their evaluation, she disappeared from the hospital. Vanessa leaned forward. Someone helped her leave, possibly, or she just walked out. The hospital records note that she seemed terrified of being registered or documented. She kept asking if they were going to put her in the system. Detective Chun joined them holding a folder. I pulled the hospital security footage from that week. It still exists on archived VHS. The quality is terrible, but we have images. He opened the folder to reveal grainy still photographs printed from video. A thin girl in an oversized hospital gown, dark hair hanging limply around her face, eyes wide and frightened as she looked at the camera. Her face was gaunt, her posture defensive. Vanessa compared the image to the camp photo of 9-year-old Lily Torres. 8 years of horror had transformed a child into this frightened, skeletal young woman, but the bone structure was similar. The set of the eyes, the shape of the mouth. It could be her, Vanessa said. Can we enhance the image? Already working on it, but there's more. Detective Holbrook pulled up a document on her tablet. The truck driver who brought her in, a man named Robert Henshaw, made a statement to police when the girl disappeared from the hospital. He said he'd found her just after sunrise walking in the middle of a highway wearing clothes that looked decades old. When he stopped to help, she initially ran from his truck, then collapsed from exhaustion. Did he say anything else about her behavior? He noted that she seemed confused about basic things. What year it was, what cars looked like, how modern highway signs worked. He initially thought she might be Amish or from some isolated religious community. She asked him if the war was over. Vanessa's chest tightened. She still believed it. Even after leaving the bunkers, part of her still believed the nuclear war had happened. Cognitive dissonance. Dr. Patricia Chin said, joining their group. She had been reviewing psychological profiles of extreme isolation cases. 8 years of reinforced belief doesn't disappear just because you see evidence to the contrary. Her mind would have struggled to reconcile what she'd been taught with, what she was seeing. It's possible she experienced a complete psychological break. Detective Chun flipped through more documents after she disappeared from Sacred Heart. There's no official record of anyone matching her description, but I've been going through police reports and social service files from late 1991 to early 1992. There are 3 incidents that might be relevant. He spread out the reports. October 1991, Seattle. A young woman matching Lily's description was found, sleeping in a public library. She told the librarian who discovered her that she was studying the New World. Social services tried to intervene, but she fled. November 1991, Tacoma. A shelter for homeless youth took in a girl calling herself Elena, who claimed to have no memory of her life before waking up on the street. The intake worker noted she seemed highly educated but struggled with basic social interactions and seemed afraid of loud noises and crowds. January 1992, Portland. A young woman was arrested for shoplifting food from a grocery store. She gave her name as El Torres, but had no identification. She was held for 72 hours, then released. No follow-up. Vanessa studied each report, her heart racing. It's her. It has to be. She's trying to survive, but doesn't know how. The question is, what happened after January 1992? Detective Holbrook said, the trail goes cold completely. Either she learned to navigate the system better or someone found her. Vanessa finished. Someone who could help her or hide her. A young forensic technician approached their group slightly out of breath. Detective Holbrook, we found something in the 3rd bunker. Personal effects that weren't with the remains. A backpack hidden behind a false wall panel. They followed her back underground. Vanessa had stopped counting how many times she descended these stairs, but each time felt like descending into a grave. The backpack was laid out in the documentation area, its contents, carefully separated and tagged. A flashlight, batteries long dead. A canteen, a small first aid kit, a compass, and a book. A paperback copy of The Stand by Stephen King, its pages yellowed and dog-eared. Survival supplies. Detective Chun observed she was planning to leave, but it was the final item that made Vanessa's breath catch. A photograph protected in a plastic bag. The camp photo from 1983. All 7 children standing in front of Camp Whispering Pines' main lodge, smiling, unaware that their lives would end or be destroyed within days. Someone had drawn a small X in pencil next to 6 of the faces. Only Lily's image remained unmarked. She marked off each one as they died. Vanessa whispered. She was keeping track of who survived. Dr. Chin examined the photograph carefully. This suggests a level of psychological awareness and planning. She knew what was happening was wrong. She knew she had to remember. Detective Holbrook was studying the backpack itself. There's writing on the inside flap, very small. She angled it toward the light. Written in careful block letters, Lily Maria Torres, DO0412/1974. Parents Miguel and Rosa Torres. Home 2847. Cedar Lane, Olympia, Abua. I am real. This is real. She was fighting to maintain her identity, Vanessa said, writing it down over and over so she wouldn't forget. The backpack was packed and hidden, Detective Chin noted, which means she was preparing to escape but waited. The question is why? Dr. Patricia Chun had been examining the book. Look at the pages she marked. Passages about rebuilding civilization. After disaster, about survival, about holding on to humanity in the face of horror. She was educating herself about how to survive in what she thought was a post-apocalyptic world. Vanessa took the photograph, looking at the 7 smiling children. Owen's face grinned back at her, gap-toothed and happy. She touched his image gently. We need to find Lily's parents, she said. Miguel and Rosa Torres. Are they still alive? Detective Holbrook was already on her phone, running it now. A pause. Then her expression softened with sadness. Miguel Torres died in 1998. Rosa Torres is still alive, age 78, living in a memory care facility in Olympia, advanced Alzheimer's. So even if we find Lily, her mother might not recognize her. But there might be other family, siblings, cousins, anyone who could help us identify her. They spent the next several hours processing the backpack and its contents. Each item told a story of a young woman preparing to enter a world she'd been taught to fear, armed with nothing but determination and fragments of her identity. As evening approached, Vanessa stood once more beside Lily's wall carving. I was here. I survived. I existed. She pulled out her phone and took a photograph of it, then sent it to Detective Holbrook. I want to release this to the media, Vanessa said when the detective joined her. I know you said we need to be careful, but we're searching for a ghost. If Lily Torres is out there, if she's built a new life, maybe seeing this will trigger something. Maybe she'll come forward. Or maybe it will traumatize her all over. Again, Holbrook countered. Miss Kellerman, I understand your urgency, but we need to consider 41 years. Vanessa interrupted. I've been careful for 41 years. I've waited. I've researched. I've followed every lead that went nowhere. Now we know she survived. We know she's out there somewhere. And every day that passes is another day she's living without knowing. People are looking for her, that her mother is still alive, that she has family who never stop caring. Detective Holbrook was quiet for a moment, then nodded. We'll prepare a press release, but we'll frame it carefully. We won't sensationalize the trauma, and we'll make it clear that anyone with information can contact us confidentially. They emerged from the bunkers to find the site bathed in twilight. Vanessa's phone buzzed with another text from her husband. Coming home soon? She looked back at the entrance to the bunkers, at the burned forest that had hidden secrets for decades at the mountain, where her brother had died and 6 other children had suffered and one had somehow survived. Not yet, she texted. Back. Not until we find her. That night, Vanessa couldn't sleep. She sat in her motel room with her laptop, searching through social media, public records, anything that might connect to a woman in her 50s who had appeared in the system around 1992 with no prior history. It was an impossible task. There were thousands of women who fit that basic profile. But somewhere in that vast sea of data was Lily Torres, and Vanessa was going to find her no matter how long it took. Her phone rang. At 11 o'clock. Detective Holbrook. We're holding a press conference tomorrow at noon. The detective said the case is officially being classified as the largest child abduction and serial murder investigation in Washington state history. We'll be releasing information about the bunkers, the victims, and our search for potential survivors. Will you mention Lily by name? Yes. And we'll share an age-progressed image based on the hospital photo and her childhood pictures. Miss Kellerman, this is going to generate a lot of attention. Are you prepared for that? Vanessa thought about Owen's face in that camp photo, about Lily's desperate carving in the concrete, about 6 children who never got to grow up, and one who did but lost herself in the process. I've been preparing for 41 years, she said. Let's find her. The press conference was held in a high school gymnasium in Millage, the only venue large enough to accommodate the media response. Vanessa stood at the back of the room, watching as Detective Holbrook faced a wall of cameras and journalists. The story had already broken nationally, the discovery of the bunkers, the bodies of 6 children, the search for a potential survivor. Every major news outlet had sent reporters. The gymnasium buzzed with anticipation. On August 20th, 2024, Detective Holbrook began. A wildfire in the Cascade foothills exposed a network of underground bunkers on property adjacent to the former Camp Whispering Pines. Inside these structures, we discovered the remains of 6 children who disappeared from that camp on July 18, 1983. She displayed photographs on the screen behind her, the bunker entrance, carefully selected images of the interior that showed the scope without being gratuitously disturbing. The room fell silent as journalists absorbed what they were seeing. We have identified the remains as those of Amy Winters, Jacob Morse, Marcus Webb, Hannah Driscoll, Sophie Blake, and Owen Kellerman. All were between 8 and 10 years old at the time of their abduction. Evidence suggests they were held in these bunkers for periods ranging from 6 months to over 4 years before their deaths. Holbrook paused, letting that information settle. The primary suspect in their abduction and captivity was Douglas Fairmont, Fecamp's assistant director, who died in July 1983 under circumstances we are now investigating. However, evidence strongly suggests Fairmont did not act alone, and that the bunkers were maintained and supplied for years after his death. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Holbrook raised her hand for quiet. We have reason to believe that one child, Lily Maria Torres, age 9 at the time of abduction, survived captivity and emerged from the bunkers in 1991 at approximately 17 years of age. We are actively searching for Ms. Torres, who would now be 50 years old. The screen changed to show 3 images side by side. 9-year-old Lily from the camp photo, the grainy hospital security footage from 1991, and an age-progressed composite showing what she might look like today. A woman with dark hair touched with gray, serious eyes. The ghost of that 9-year-old still visible in her features. If you are Lily Torres, Holbrook said, speaking directly to the cameras. Or, if you know someone who might be Lily Torres, please contact our tip line. You are not in any trouble. We simply want to help you and to give you the answers you deserve about what happened to you. The questions began immediately, shouted from every corner of the room. Holbrook fielded them with professional calm, revealing what she could while protecting the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Yes, the deaths appeared to be from illness and accidents rather than direct violence. Yes, evidence suggested the children had been told nuclear war had destroyed the surface world. Yes, they were investigating Fairmont's associates and anyone who might have been complicit in the crimes. Vanessa slipped out before the conference ended, unable to bear the circus atmosphere. Outside, she found Dr. Patricia Chin standing in the parking lot smoking a cigarette despite the no smoking signs. I didn't know you smoked, Vanessa said. I don't quit 20 years ago. Chin took a long drag. This case made me start again. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the news vans and satellite trucks. I've been analyzing the journals more thoroughly. Chin said the psychological manipulation Fairmont employed was sophisticated. He didn't just tell the children the world had ended. He created an entire constructed reality. Fake radio broadcasts on Ascadal,